好，各位同学午安。晚饭前我们很快帮助消化，开胃一下，来一段的 Catch It in the Rye 第5章新的进度，大概3页左右，时间够再往下。如果时间不够的话，我们3页为一个基准。好，我就直接开始。好，开始前我们调一下镜头，然后润个喉就开始了。好，开始。We always had the same meal on Saturday nights at Pansy. It was supposed to be a big deal because they gave you steak. I'll bet $1,000 the reason they did that was because a lot of guys' parents came up to school on Sunday. And old Sturmer probably figured everybody's mother would ask their darling boy what he had for dinner last night. And he'd say, steak. What a racket. You should have seen the steaks. They were these little hard, dry jobs that you could hardly even cut. You always got these very lumpy mashed potatoes on steak night. And for dessert, you got brown Betty, which nobody ate, except maybe the little kids in the lower school that didn't know any better, and guys like Ackley that ate everything. It was nice though, when we got out of the dining room. There were about 3 inches of snow on the ground, and it was still coming down like a madman. It looked pretty as hell, and we all started throwing snowballs and horsing around all over the place. It was very childish, but everybody was really enjoying themselves. I didn't have a date or anything, so I and this friend of mine, Mel Brosser, that was on the wrestling team, decided we'd take a bus into Hagerstown and have a hamburger and maybe see a lousy movie. Neither of us felt like sitting around on our ass all night. I asked Mel if it minded if Ackley came along with us. The reason I asked was because Ackley never did anything on Saturday night except stay in his room and squeeze his pimples or something. Mel said he didn't mind, but that he wasn't too crazy about the idea. He didn't like Ackley much. Anyway, we both went to our rooms to get ready and all. And while I was putting on my galoshes and crap, I yelled over and asked old Ackley if he wanted to go to the movies. He could hear me all right through the shower curtains, but he didn't answer me right away. He was the kind of a guy that hates to answer you right away. Finally, he came over through the goddamn curtains and stood on the shower ledge and asked who was going beside me. You always had to know who was going. I swear, if that guy was shipwrecked somewhere and you rescued him in a goddamn boat, he'd want to know who the guy was that was rowing it before he'd even get in. I told him Mel Blosser was going. He said, that bastard. All right, wait a second. You think he was doing you a big favor. It took him about 5 hours to get ready. While he was doing it, I went over to my window and opened it and packed a snowball with my bare hands. The snow was very good for packing. I didn't throw it at anything though. I started to throw it at a car that was parked across the street, but I changed my mind. The car looked so nice and white. Then I started to throw it at a hydrant, but that looked too nice and white too. Finally, I didn't throw it at anything. All I did was close the window and walk around the room with the snowball, packing it harder. A little while later, I still had it with me when I and Brosser and Ackley got on the bus. The bus driver opened the doors and made me throw it out. I told him I wasn't going to chuck it at anybody, but he wouldn't believe me. People never believe you. Brosser and Ackley both had seen the picture and that was playing. So all we did, we just had a couple of hamburgers and played a pinball machine for a little while, then took the bus back to Pansy. He didn't care about not seeing the movie anyway. It was supposed to be a comedy with Cary Grant in it and all that crap. Besides, I've been to the movies with Brasa and Ackley before. They both laughed like hyenas at stuff that wasn't even funny. I didn't even enjoy sitting next to them in the movies. It was only about 9:15 when we got back to the dorm. Oh, Brasa was a bridge fiend, and he started looking around the dorm for a game. Oh, Ackley parked himself in my room just for a change. Only instead of sitting on the arm of Stralater's chair, he lay down on my bed with his face right on my pillow. And all, he started talking in this very monotonous voice and picking at all his pimples. I dropped about 1,000 hints, but I couldn't get rid of him. All he did was keep talking in this very monotonous voice about some babe he was supposed to have had sex intercourse with the summer before. He'd already told me about it about 100 times. Every time he told it, it was different. 1 minute, he'd be giving it to her in his cousin's Buick. The next minute, he'd be giving it to her under some boardwalk. It was all a lot of crap, naturally. He was a virgin if ever I saw one. I doubt if he ever even gave anybody a feel. Anyway, finally I had to come right out and tell him that I had to write a composition for Stralater and that he had to clear the hell out so that I could concentrate. He finally did, but he took his time about it, as usual. After he left, I put on my pajamas and bathrobe and my old hunting hat and started writing the composition. The thing was, I couldn't think of a room or a house or anything to describe the way Stralater said he had to have. I'm not too crazy about describing rooms and houses anyway. So what I did, I wrote about my brother Ali's baseball mitts. It was a very descriptive subject. It really was. My brother Ali had this left-handed fielder's mitts. He was left-handed. The thing that was descriptive about it, though, was that he had poems written all over the fingers in the pocket and everywhere, in green ink. He wrote them on it so that he'd have something to read when he was in the field and nobody was up at bat. He's dead now. He got leukemia and died when he was up in Maine on July 18, 1946. You'd have liked him. He was 2 years younger than I was, but he was about 50 times as intelligent. He was terrifically intelligent. His teachers were always writing letters to my mother, telling her what a pleasure it was having a boy like Ali in their class. 好，我就到第49页我们就结束了。哦，1、2、3、4，哦，念了4页，大概花了8分钟，8分半钟。我想这个量应该是这一次应该是够的。好，那内容确实很不错哦，慢慢进入到我认为很可读性越来越高了哦，里面当然有一些幽默感在里面，小朋友的幽默感哦，这样子。你住过校，或是说你在学校跟同学在一起互动，通常会碰到这样很奇怪的事情这样子。那我个人感触是蛮深的，因为我高中生大概就是 Holden 这个年纪是在中正预校，我们有类似的这种经验这样蛮不错的。好，我们就留待下一回讲解的时候，我们再来做说明。今天这个赶课也不算赶了，就是把第5章新的章节开始就到这个地方。好，感谢大家，晚安。